Hello, and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. Hello, everyone. Boy, I am so excited to be starting a new series with you all in my podcast, The Life You're Made For. We've just wrapped up our belief series, and I got to interview some really dynamic people who have really shown us, not just told us, but shown us what they believe and why they believe and some of the challenges behind the beliefs that maybe some of them they've outgrown. So this next series is about good guides. And I like this idea of having guides in our life, mainly because it's probably a lot of what I do, but it's also a lot of who I've been attracted to is really good guides. And I want to talk about the importance of good guides. I want to talk about how to attract them. You know, why do we need guides in our life? And what makes them good? What makes them not so good? We want to make sure that we're really choosing and being selective, because we get to stay in the driver's seat of the guides we invite into our life and making sure that, honestly, they're going where we want to go. So we'll be talking about questions like what's important about having them, what makes them a good guide and a good fit for you. What are some key takeaways that people have learned from it? What are some learning experiences when you had some not so good guides that either started out good, but then ended up not being so good, or maybe realizing that you got involved with someone that really wasn't where you wanted to be going? We learn from all of these, don't we? And I just want to talk to people about that. And honestly, then wrapping up with, what does it look like for us to be a good guide? There's always someone that we can influence in our life and support in their guiding process of, like, you might be a couple paces ahead of them in an area that they're very interested. How do we support and encourage people behind us, people who are wanting to take some of the journeys that we've taken? How do we lend a helping hand and encourage and empower and equip this next generation, or people that are interested in maybe doing a little bit of what we're doing? So, and I get a lot of calls, emails, texts about people wanting to either become a coach or trying to hire a coach. And they're trying to get my ideas behind what makes a good coach and what makes someone that they want to work with, or even someone they want to become. And that's why I thought I want to have this conversation, because of how much I get contacted. And then honestly, I've heard some really hard stories of people kind of giving an open door to some guides in their life that really did a little bit more harm than they did help. And again, in the work that I do, I think about the oath that doctors have to take of do no harm. I think the same thing as a coach, as a teacher, but really, honestly, just as a human being. And as we look at having any level of influence in our world and our life, what does that look like to be a good leader, a good helper to people who are on the path that we're on, or just behind us a little bit and trying to get to a certain space in life? We have really the joy of coming alongside of people and supporting that process. And what does it look like to be invited in a way that really honors and respects the journey that they're on? So I want to talk a little bit about this, and I'm invited some really great people. I'm really excited about the lineup. These are people that I've considered to be fantastic guides, and they've either been one to me formally or informally. You know, we can have guides come in many shapes and forms, but I watch what they're doing in this world, and they're serving as a guide to a lot of people. But they've either been just a really sound influence in my life as a friend, or even as someone that I have brought on my team or to personally support me, I really am selective about it. And I've gotten to be selective about it because, man, I'm in my 50s, but I've been working with guides and gosh, since my teenage years probably. So I've got a lot of experience in this and a lot to say about it. And it's really the field that I've chosen. So we're going to jump in, of course, with every series that I start. I'm starting to do this my own conversation on it. Like I'm getting interviewed myself. I'm doing my own solo podcast on this because I want to start the conversation and give you a little context of where I'm coming from. So let's go ahead and jump in. What's important about having guides in your life? I want to keep this as simple as possible, but we need guides in our lives to help us get to that next level. You know that feeling when if you knew what to do, you would, but you're just not quite sure what that next step is. You might be at a crossroad. You might be trying to level up. You might be trying to get somewhere that you don't know how to get to. You might be trying to get a result or an outcome that you really want for yourself in your life, but you don't know how to do it. Could be like starting a business. Could be getting an advancement in a field that you want. It could be starting a new relationship. Well, let's take the relationship, for example. Who are you going to go ask? Someone that does not have a good marriage or friendship or significant other, and it's not someone you'd really admire? Or are you going to go ask somebody that has really fun to be around and you've admired the relationship? And if that's something you want to grow in, that's someone you want to go ask these questions. So that's this idea behind what I'm calling guides. And they come in many shapes and forms. Some examples are a counselor, a therapist, a coach, a mentor, parent, teacher, boss, supervisor, maybe a spiritual director. Maybe it's even someone you don't know, like an author or speaker. Two are coming to my mind that have really influenced me over the years. One is Sue Monk Kidd. You know, she wrote the book Secret Life of Bees, the novel, but she's also written some really profound thought books and spiritual books that have influenced me as a thinker and as a thought leader. And Richard Rohr is another one. Talk about a thought leader in the field. Boy, he is really, if you could just Google him, he has so much out there. And he's just written a ton of books, but I love his balanced approach and how he talks about everything from psychology to theology and honors the whole person, mind, body, heart, spirit. He just does a fabulous job. So he's really influenced by him quite a bit. And these are two that are coming to mind. I don't know them personally, but boy, have they been good guides to me in my life. And then last but not least, it could be even an informal relationship like a friend. There's many of the people I'm bringing on the show, they've been influential in my own personal life. They might excel in their business and there's someone I would call to talk to them about it. They might excel in their marriage and it's someone I might call and connect with them on it. They might have strong creative bent. And so I want to talk to them about some creative ideas I have. So it can come even in some form of friend or peer. So those are some of faces that some of these guides come in the shape and form of. You know, the other thing I want to consider is that I always tell people, like sometimes they'll be like, well, do I need a coach? Do I need a counselor? What do I need? And I listen to them and I say, well, let me first ask you, is your life working and are you really excited about it? If the answer is yes, I would just say, keep going. If the answer is no, then I would say, okay, then that's probably where you want to talk with someone to help you level up. And you can instinctively know, I think every person knows this at their gut level, what I call the 3 a.m. wake up call, you know, that middle of the night when you don't have much of a filter anymore and you're not busy, but the honesty and the truth comes at you of what it is you're needing. When you're kind of feeling like life is not working out the way I want it to, and I can't seem to get past this space or this spot, and I can't seem to push through this ceiling or this level, that's when you want to invite somebody in. So I think as you look at that too, you're also wanting to see someone who is further down the road than you. I love calling people who are amazing in the work that they do. Remember when I was starting to write my book, man, I called people who were authors and who had either gotten published or self-published, or I remember starting this podcast, calling people who had experience in that. I think more in a personal relationship, parenting adult kids. There's a friend I have in mind now that I'll call her and say, now, how is this when your child turned 18 or when your child turned 22? How'd that go for you? Or I'm facing this issue or this conflict or this concern. How did you handle that? You can see that guides can show up in many different places. My hope is at the end of this conversation, you will feel empowered to be very selective, very selective. I wish someone had told me some of the stuff that I want to tell you, because some of the stuff I had to learn the hard way. And I want, in the work that I do with people too, I encourage them how to interview, whether it's a formal relationship like a coach or therapist or counselor that they want to bring in, or whether it's informal. You always get to stay in the driver's seat. So whether you're formally interviewing them or informally interviewing them, you always want to be selective and understand what it is you're looking for. You want to have that clarity of who you want in your life. You want to have the confidence to speak to it, and you want to have the courage to take action on it. Those 3 C's. So always looking at clarity, confidence, and courage and how we can grow it. And we want to direct it toward this idea of good guides. There's 3 main areas. And this is going to be a quick, short answer, and then I'll unpack some more throughout this conversation. But when I think of someone I want to turn to or ask even a question to or even hire to support me personally, I want to make sure they're helping me connect in 3 areas. To connect deeper, 1, with my sense of self, like who I am made to be in this world. Secondly, to better connect with others. They're not trying to isolate me, but they're trying to help me build bridges to the people that I want to build bridges to and stay connected in healthy relationship. And then the third one is, it's more transcendent. So I'm going to label it a couple things, but it could be a connection with a higher power, God, love, purpose, but it's something bigger than yourself. So, many of you know that my faith is important to me. So I think about it as someone that helps me connect to God. And of course, I see God as all loving. So anything that's not loving, it's not going to help me connect to God. I also see it as a sense of purpose in this world, and my calling. So it's something bigger than myself. And it's those 3 areas: self, others, and God or purpose. Okay. So anything that is helping you grow in those areas and feel stronger, it's going to grow your whole sense of self and your role in this world and the identity that you want to strengthen. Remember, we're all choosing who we want to become. So who we invite in to listen and to talk and to process, we want to be super selective. All right. So I want to give you some examples. Here's several. When I think about the good guides back in my life, here's one that goes all the way back into my 20s. And my husband and I think we were in our first year of marriage, and I got married young. It feels young now because I said I'm in my 50s, but I was 23 and I had met him 18. So we grew up together. We say this all the time. It feels like we really grew up together. But I remember we had a couple and they were in their 60s. And when you're in your 20s, you're just looking at this couple like, oh my gosh, you're so much further than us. And I still remember a statement that they said that in our 32 years of marriage now, we have repeated this over and over. And they said, drive your stake. And at first we were like, huh? What does that mean? But they were actually kind of coaching us on our finances in our marriage. Drive your stake. And I thought, well, that's fascinating. And I remember them still explaining what that meant. Because your income's going to rise and fall throughout the years. When it rises, you don't want to keep expanding your lifestyle to match the increase of your income. You want to decide what your stake is and say, that's it. Doesn't matter how much we make. This is the level of which we want to live and the quality of life we want to have. Boy, that's been powerful. So powerful. And it's helped us make financial decisions when we've had a little, and then financial decisions when we've had a lot. Going, well, we could, I guess, afford to buy more property or do more stuff. And then we look at each other and go, is that really our stake that we've driven? Is this the quality of life we want to have? To own is to maintain, is a lot of what we say. And so we realized we don't want to be owned by stuff. And we don't want stuff to own us. And we don't want our life to be navigated around stuff. that financial freedom was some of the best advice we've ever gotten. And so our values then were aligned with who we wanted to be, not the amount of stuff we were trying to accumulate. That was really a big deal for us in our 20s, especially when we had nothing. we, we were in student loans and we had so much catch up we had to do to just try and pay off our education and then do our job. And I just remember we got that advice and we're like, that is sound advice that has really driven our focus throughout our life. And it's what we pass on, honestly, to other newlyweds when they come to us for any kind of advice. Another one I really loved was, I remember I saw this counselor, and I think I only saw him for 2 or 3 sessions. It wasn't a long journey, but boy, I remember I was talking on one of our conversations, and I said to him, I just don't feel like I belong anywhere. And I remember he looked at me and he said, well, what about belonging to yourself? Yeah, it was pretty much a truth bomb. And I think I even did a podcast on it. I want to say about a year ago. You could probably just look it up in the search bar there, but you can see, I called it, You Get to Belong to You, because it was so profound that it got me off my discontent of trying to belong somewhere to something and realize I think that was I'm ready to mature. I think I've outgrown that thought. And he gave me the permission to just belong to me. It was pretty life-changing. So that was an awesome, another good guy that came along at the great time. Another one I love, and this was just several years ago, but boy, my company had grown, my business had grown, and I could feel the strain of what's next and how much do I want to grow. And I remember a lot of people were involved in my work and in my life, and in some of them I loved, and some of them I realized I don't think we're a fit. So I was talking to him about some of this, and he used a phrase that I absolutely loved. And he goes, Heather, you want intruders or do you want guests? And I go, oh my gosh, I want guests. He goes, yeah. You want to have people in your life that treat it like they're a guest in your life, not an intruder. That was huge for me because a lot of times, you're doing something new and you're feeling kind of vulnerable and you're not sure, like for instance, starting a podcast or writing a book or even just starting my own business. Well, of course I'm impressionable and of course I'm easily influenced. I'm going to listen to people who've done it before. But he gave me a new filter. He goes, oh yeah, you can listen to people who've done it before, but you want to listen to people who feel like guests in your life, but not intruders. That really helped me refine my selective process of some of the people that were really starting to feel like intruders in my world. And that goes for my personal life too. Some people trying to tell me how to parent or different things with my marriage or anything like that I was just like, I don't think I like this. Or even maybe my thoughts about God, how I should think. I'm like, I think this is something I get to think through. And right now it's starting to shift from you feeling like a guest in my life to an intruder. See how it gives you this new permission to be very selective. The other thing that one of these guides taught me was I kept looking backwards in my life. And I didn't realize I was doing this, but again, I think I needed permission to just what he called burn the ships. This is, I think, when Cortez came to the New Americas and people were getting homesick and they were kind of eyeballing the ship and trying to figure out how to get back to their original homes. And he had his soldiers go out there and burn all the ships so they couldn't go home. It was a powerful reminder. And I remember him kept saying, burn the ships, Heather, burn the ships. And it was helped me stop looking in my rearview mirror or stop looking backwards, which was sucking me in. And it was kind of pulling me backwards. And so it's something I think about often where I'm like, wait a minute, I burn those ships. I'm not going backwards. I'm not going to doubt some of the decisions I've made today or for this year because I'm thinking about maybe something 5 years ago or even yesterday. Some of this is idea of just forward thinking, but I was getting stuck in some of that backward thinking. And this was another one. I grew up in a pretty strong religious world and a lot of beautiful things about it, a lot of beautiful people about it, and also some restrictive thinking. And I remember I had an amazing guide who came along and he just said to me a simple phrase. It's those simple phrases that stick with us the most. That's what I probably should do. I should just do a podcast with just a couple simple phrases and then be quiet. But his simple phrase to me was, you get God. You get God. And he said that over and over in our conversations. And what I realized he meant by that is that I get to have the God that I believe in and who God is to me and how I need to perceive God and what I believe about God. No one has to interpret God for me. I love that. I love that with so much of the theology and things ringing in my ears of what I should and shouldn't think and what I should and shouldn't do and what I should and shouldn't like. And being able to slow down and just go, wait a minute, I get God. I don't have to have it interpreted for me or be told what I should or shouldn't think about. A connection with a divine loving being. So very empowering, very powerful. And I love that idea. And it's what I say to people too. If they're searching and they're trying to figure out their higher power, what God gets to mean to them, I'm like, you get God. You get a direct access to God or whatever you want to call that higher power. You get that connection. And it gets to be loving. It gets to be caring. It gets to be grace-filled. It gets to have peace that passes all understanding. You get to have that sense. And that's where our faith then becomes something that's relevant to us, not to some group or formation or anything else that we are supposed to cross every T and dot every I. It's a personal decision and a personal experience. So those are some great examples that I thought about when I sat down to write up my podcast and think about what it is I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to share some personal ones that have really transformed and influenced my life. And honestly, there's much, much more. I could probably talk several hours of amazing people that have been in my life at critical times as a young leader or as a young wife or young mother. And then as a new entrepreneur, anything I was doing that was new, shifting even in my faith and evolving in different areas of my creativity, just whatever it is that I was about, how I was leveling up. I really learned the importance of good guides. And I also learned that I get to be selective. And so when I really sat down and thought about, and I got better and better at this, to be honest, because I'm going to also talk a little bit about some guides that were not so good. But these are the 10 attributes. And I really stopped to think about what makes a good guide and what am I looking for before I let them influence me. And before I even, whether I hire them or ask them a question, before I even listen to them, this is what I'm kind of looking for. And let me put it this way, maybe not before I listen to them, but before I integrate maybe any of their advice or thought process, I'm looking for these 10 areas. So the first one is really belief. They believe in me, my good heart, and my potential. That's super important. I just got to feel like they believe in me. Second one is holding my own 3 C's. You've heard me talk about clarity, confidence, and courage. Well, I believe everybody holds it within them. Life gets going so fast and we just need time, someone to help us pull back and access that. I need anyone who's a good guide in my life to believe that I hold my own clarity, confidence, courage. They don't have to hold it for me. They don't have to have it about their clarity, confidence, courage. I need it to be about mine. That was a huge one that I actually did refine over the years. My third one is self-agency. I need them to believe really in my own personal self-agency, not to be dependent on them. And more importantly, not to use me to affirm their own life decisions. I know that's a funny thing to say, but that's something I had to kind of work out and realize, oh, some people like to guide you to affirm their own personal life decisions. I needed to feel like I had my own self-agency that was really respected and it wasn't dependent on any one person or following any one person. It was really about following my own life path. The fourth one is acceptance. Really accept where I'm at in my journey without judgment. You'd think that goes without saying. And I would hope, that each person listening has had an opportunity to have someone influence their thinking and their life by just accepting them right where they're at. Once you've experienced that, you get very picky and selective. And again, I've had just amazing opportunity to have people who've accepted me right where I'm at and not judged me about what I am or am not saying or doing or not doing, have seen me from where I'm at and seen the struggles that I am up against. And there's no judgment there. There's only acceptance. Boy, that's a gift. Fifth is listening. Again, simple, but so important. Are they truly listening to me and where I want to grow? Or are they listening with an agenda? Or are they listening with their own filter? I really want them to feel like they're listening to me as I'm trying to maybe fumble through some words or some thoughts that are new to me. Are they helping me kind of do this active listening and pulling it out in me? And then, of course, honesty is the sixth one. Saying the truth, integrating the truth, but really committing to shared perspectives. Honesty is not one-sided. Honesty is saying, here's what I'm thinking, but let me hear if this resonates with you and if it's what you're thinking. Do you see how honesty is then this beautiful partnership where you both get to be honest with each other, and out of that you get to have this collective clarity that grows. The seventh one is really this idea of commitment to growth. Honestly, I want to grow. And if I'm inviting someone in my life to get some thoughts and ideas and advice from, or wise counsel, I want it to be something that's caused me to grow in the direction that I want to go. The eighth one is questions. Asking good questions to help you explore new ideas and really listen to yourself. I remember being asked when I first started coaching, I hired my own coach, and I remember him asking, what do you want? I couldn't believe how hard that question was to answer. And I said, I don't know. I think I want this. But when I start to, at the time, I was interviewing for nonprofits, and I was thinking that I wanted to return to the nonprofit field. Then I was also interviewing in academia, thinking I wanted to return to there. And I got back from several interviews at the time going, I feel like I should want these, and I should want to want these, but I don't want these. And I remember him saying, well, what do you want? And I realized, ooh, that's scarier to answer. I'd rather talk about what I don't want. Let's just spend the hour talking about what I don't want. And it was really a powerful conversation for me to start owning what I do want. But it was scary. I want to own my own business. I'm not sure what I want to do, but I want to impact and influence people. Will people want to listen to me? All the false beliefs start creeping in immediately when you start whispering a new dream. But it was so important for him to ask me that important question, because out of that, my clarity and my confidence, my courage had the opportunity to start breathing and growing. The ninth one is really being trustworthy. Man, they have to have a proven track record. Any guides that I invite into my life or influence me, and I might just know them for a short time, or I might know them for a long time. But even if it's a short time, I'm watching them and listening to them very closely and just making sure they're practicing what they preach. And if it's someone I've known for a long time, or maybe it's a new person, but they have a proven track record of doing and being of who I want to do and be. And so I remember my most recent coach, I think I watched him for 5 years. Then I read one of his books. And then I realized, yep, he's one of my top choices. I'm going to see if he has an opening. And he ended up having an opening. We had a great working experience together. But it was because I was very selective of who I wanted involved in my life. So I'm really looking at that track record. The last one, this one is a little bit more tricky, but it's this idea, do they know how to hold the process and the outcome? Boy, that's hard. Even as a coach, it's something that I constantly am trying to focus on and be aware of. People are taking journeys, and sometimes it's a very hard process. I was talking to a client today, and she was working on her true beliefs, but she was really having a hard time letting go of those false beliefs. We have had to have this process for understanding why she needs to let go of them. But as we're talking about it, one of the assignments I'd given her in action steps was to make her true belief cards. And any of you who've worked with me know that's something I do. And if it's something you're interested in, by the way, it is in my book, The Life You're Made For. You can read a little bit about what I do with true belief cards, but it's to help you change your mindset. It's 5 minutes a day. You write the true belief on a card and you just start moving into meditation or prayer. But it begins to change your mindset of what you get to be about. But it was so scary and hard. So that's the process that I had to really honor. But toward the end of the conversation, I smiled. I remember looking at her and saying, but I'm still going to ask you to do those true belief cards. That's the outcome. And she laughed. She goes, I knew you would. And I also then said, and it needs to be about your beliefs, not anyone else's, but yours. And she laughed. She goes, yeah, I know. I just don't like talking about who I am or what I'm doing. And I'm like, I know, but you're worth it. And I believe in you. Do you see how I'm holding that process and outcome? The process that's scary to try something new and to level up, and its growth is just uncomfortable. But there is an outcome that we're going for. That if we don't be honest about that outcome, we're not going to get what we're looking for. So those are 10 that I have really learned over the years, and also just try and be. As I look at my role in this world and just the world I live in as a coach, as a spouse, as a friend, as a parent, I'm looking at these 10 areas. Am I able to offer that? And it looks different. If you're hiring me, of course, that's going to be more of a professional relationship versus a personal relationship. But man, I still want to be a good listener. I still want to have everyone who crosses my path, whether it's my 22-year-old kid or whether it's a client, I want them to feel accepted by me. I want them to feel like that I'm meeting them where they're at. So it's something that has driven me not only in my selective process of who I invite in, but who I want to be. And one of the ways to really understand this is to initiate feedback. What's my effect on you? What's it like being my daughter, my son? What's it like with being your spouse? What's that like living with me? What's my effect on you as a coach? What is it that you as a client are looking for? Do you see how it is when we take time to initiate feedback, and whether we're asking it directly or whether we're listening kind of between the lines, you're looking for your influence and your impact. And is it something that is helping them? And is it the best way for you to show up in their lives? And if not, what are we doing about it? Are we even changing our behavior? Are we referring out? Or are we helping people get the clarity they need so that we can adapt? There's so many ways to handle it, but it's a really important question is to initiate feedback and being really responsible for our impact on people. That being said, one of the other things too I had to really be cognizant of is, I've got this old false belief coming all the way back from childhood of I have to be perfect. Well, no, I don't. And the more I engage that true belief over the years of I get to learn and grow alongside of you. Boy, that is the kindest thing I can say to me. And so when I mess up or when I miss the boat, to be able to feel so comfortable with the fact that they can approach me and say, hey, this didn't feel so good when you said this, or I need to check something with you. I wasn't sure about this. To be able to go, oh my gosh, did not see that. I totally missed it. Doesn't mean I might agree everything with them, but it's still that awareness of I care about my impact on you. And if you're telling me something, what's important to you is important to me. I care. So being able to have that response that, yeah, I'm learning and growing right alongside you. I think those make some of the best guides. Those have been some of my favorite guides in my life that had that feeling of growing alongside of me. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I want to ask some questions about some harder guides in your life. I've had some experiences where I've disagreed with a guide. Let me start there. And this actually happened to be in a relationship with two different kinds of coaches, but one I disagreed with, and boy, I was shamed for my decision. And to the point where I really had to hold my boundaries and say, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree, but it's not what I want to do or where I want to go. Not a fun conversation to have and not a fun conversation to pay for, to be honest. It was a shaming process that was used to kind of try and control. And in contrast, it was about a year later, I had this coach in my life that I was working with, and it was actually in the middle of me publishing my first book. And he really wanted me to get a publishing agency. Well, I tried and then realized a lot of publishers really want you to have a huge social media following, and I just didn't have that at the time. So I thought I can wait to publish my book and grow my social media and then go approach them, or I can go ahead and publish it now and then just kind of let it start building over time authentically. And I had my literary agent at the time, and we're like, do we keep sending out letters trying to get this published? What do we do? And I remember I mentioned this to my coach, and he literally, I remember his phrase, I have a strong bias for working with a publisher. And I was like, oh, I bet you do. You're a New York Times bestseller. You're amazing. I wish I could have what you have. But it was so cool when I came to him. I said, hey, listen, I don't know whether to keep sending out letters or whether to go ahead and just publish on my own. But I have my literary agent here. And he goes, get her on the line. Get her on the line. I got her on the line, and all three of us talked. It was such a powerful conversation where I ended up doing the opposite of what he recommended. But boy, did I feel his support. And I was so grateful for just his transparency, his openness, and his willingness to let us talk about different perspectives in such a safe forum when honestly, it's a vulnerable place, right? You're trying to write for the first time, trying to see if someone will publish you, and realizing there's a lot more work than I realized. I thought my work was done just writing the book. Oh no, you still have to get it published and marketed and all that good stuff. So he was just such a kind voice in my life that allowed me to do it a different way and cheered me on and supported me. I love that about him. And so I do want to mention some things that I have learned over the years. And I came up with 7 attributes of what you do not want. These are guides I've actually had to step away from. If I'm sensing, number 1, controlling. If they're starting to feel too controlling, I don't even have to know what or why. I just don't have to do it. The next one is really entitled. Kind of they have a self-declared importance in my life or demanding things from me, my time, my attention, my resources. I no longer do that anymore. And again, all these are ones that I actually experienced and realized, oh, guides that are not really a good fit for me are still a really valuable learning experience. But I encourage you, if you walk away with a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth, really understand the why. Why didn't I like that experience? So these are all things that I came up with when I realized, gosh, I had to step away from some of these people. And it's helped educate me for who I'm going to invite in later on. You know, this kind of goes under the category of intruders. So if they're controlling, entitled, there's an arrogance about them. They believe that they know better than me. More importantly, if they believe they know better about what I need for me. Does that make sense? I need them to believe that I know best for myself, not that they know best for me. That's an arrogant thing. Along the same lines as a superiority. Like they wanted to use our time to really affirm their own beliefs and their own perspectives. For whatever reason, I don't know. People do this, but it's not how I want to spend that time with them, and nor does it really serve me or help me get my own clarity and my own confidence and my own courage. The other one too, I flat out, this one took me a little longer because frankly, it was confusing. And that's it. The attribute is confusing. This was someone who was actually in my younger years who actually asked to mentor me. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, he's a big prominent figure. Yeah, I kind of feel honored. I feel very honored actually. But throughout our time together, I just felt very confused. And I realized I don't even understand what's happening, but I don't like feeling confused. So I get to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm out. That one took me a little longer because it was confusing to realize I was confused. But that's an important one that throughout the years has really served me well. If I'm working with you or I'm listening to you and I'm just constantly confused, boy, I have a very short tolerance for that. I don't mind it stopping and asking for clarity. And if you can explain it, great. But if I'm constantly confused, no, it's obviously not going to be a fit. And I don't even have to figure out why. You heard me mention about shaming. So anything with shaming, yeah, I just have zero tolerance for that. And then last, this was kind of funny, but I was like, I didn't know what else to call it. So I just called it creepy. If it just feels kind of creepy. I remember someone wanted to kind of really convince me of their theology and the way they thought about God and spiritual thoughts. And I just go, I don't know. I just feel a little creepy. It just didn't feel right. I want to leave that category in because sometimes you don't even know what it is, but it just kind of gives you the creeps and you're like, yeah, I'm out. So I just want to say, those are some quick filters to help you say, I get to be much more selective. And again, we learn from the negative ones, sometimes more than we learn from the positive ones, because it just starts training you of what's a fit for you and what's not. And there's probably more you can add, but those were some of my own personal experiences that has helped me be much more selective of who I invite in and who I want in my life and who I really want to be listening to. And I guess I want to end with this idea that some of the most powerful attributes that have stood out to me, and frankly, it's who I want to be, is there's a humility with confidence. Isn't that a great tension? Someone said that to me a year or so ago, and I was so grateful. I thought that's probably one of the best compliments I've ever received. It was a very intentional compliment, and that's why it stuck with me. She was like, you have a humility with confidence. I go, I think that's what I've been striving for. I didn't even know it until you mentioned it. I do want to have a humbleness about me, but I also want to feel confident in what I'm doing and what I'm a part of. So it's something that, when people compliment you, it's something that you kind of want to grow in and remember this gets to be who you are and this is how you're perceived. So, going back to that, getting feedback from people, how we get our feedback from people and our impact on people, we learn both from the negative and the positive. But that made me proud of who I am and who I'm choosing to become, that's who she saw me as. I want to be seen as curious. Some other attributes that stand out is be strong, but also be sensitive. Gosh, it's a beautiful tension to hold, but it's an important one. I want also this sense of how to be committed to my journey, to others people's journey, but there's a commitment there. There's also a great sense of humor. I heard this said somewhere and I really liked it, but it was something along the lines of, I don't take life too seriously. I don't take myself too seriously, but I do take you seriously. Isn't that a great sense? Like, I don't want to be laughing at people, but I want to be quick to laugh at just sometimes the ludicrousness and the ridiculousness and just the funniness of life. I mean, it's just funny sometimes. And even the ease of being able to laugh at myself. I want that ease there. I'm no fan of anyone feeling like a fool, including myself, nor do I want anyone to feel humiliated or ridiculous. But I do want an ease that if you find something funny, man, I'll laugh with you. But I'll also respect, how does that humor set with you? And if at any point it doesn't feel funny to you, then of course I wouldn't laugh. So humor just appropriately done, if that makes sense. And then also this idea of valuing freedom. These are some attributes that really stand out to me. And then last but not least, just kindness. Gosh, kindness is so powerful. I have learned to lead more with kindness, compassion, care. And in my strength, sometimes it can be misunderstood. Well, I've learned to say, oh, I'm sorry. I did not need to come across too strong, but I'm care and I'm passionate. Let me rephrase that, or let me take a step back, or let me say it differently. And I'm telling you, it's helped me be a better coach, better human, but it's helped me understand that the world is looking. People are looking for more kindness. They're starving for it. And when we're in an area of influence, or we're looking to be influenced, kindness goes a long way. And when I've invited people in my life, it's always in a vulnerable space. I'm at a crossroad. I'm in a new change. I'm trying to level up. Man, I just need you to be kind to me because I'm working really hard over here and I'm trying to bat down those false beliefs. I'm trying to bring in new true beliefs, and I'm really excited about some things, but I may be off, but I may be on. I just need kindness with that. And that's something that I have thought a lot about. That when we step into people's lives, whether we're being a good guide or whether we're inviting in good guides, kindness goes such a long way. And that's where I think I'll end. And you'll hear me say this a lot, but along the same lines of kindness, when I say I'm cheering you on, it's because I have watched so many people work so hard. And oftentimes I'm like, I don't know what else to say except I see you. I see how hard you're working. I believe in you. I believe in your potential. And I truly am cheering you on.